Hi friends, and welcome to Western North Carolina. We have had mornings with ice-kissed mountains, followed by false spring where it's absolutely gorgeous and warm out. The birds have been coming out and making their presence known on these warm days. And we also get really high winds here, so you get this spooky, sort of loud experience here in the mountains. Our home's tucked in the forest, surrounded by trees, so we get all the sounds of the trees in the forest on these winter days, and they're lacking their leaves. And it's just been really, really beautiful. And inside the garage, we're growing an abundance of food. And in today's video, I'm going to take you through how I use some of that food to make staple foods to feed us well. Thanks for joining me. I hope you enjoy. Hey friends, so I just did a big harvest, and this video may span over 2 days. It's definitely going to span over 2 days. But what I did was harvested some food. I'm going to show you guys what that is, and I'm going to be making some recipes. And I wanted to take you guys along. I have mentioned that we're redoing our kitchen, and so it's gotten to be a gigantic mess. I don't know about you guys, but when I'm doing a project like that, I tend to stop putting the things away in places that they aren't working when I know I'm going to redo something, and all the mess sort of clutters up. But then it helps me to see like all the different components of things I have that need a home, so that I can redo the space and address those things. So we have several cases of oranges. I've got a case of grapefruit, a case of lemons. That was all ordered from a co-op. I'm going to be juicing the lemons and making immunity shots with lemon ginger and cayenne pepper, and I'll take you guys along for that. We'll do that together. I'll show you how I store those. I like to make staple foods. I call it the Whole Foods bar. I love the Whole Foods bar. I don't like Whole Foods, and I don't like what they put in their foods because they use canola oil, but I love that spread. So having things like hummus and tabouli and fresh greens to harvest. And I like dal. I'm gonna make a spinach dal, but using a lot of greens that aren't spinach. I make orzo pastas with olives and greens. I'm gonna add some cucumbers to that. So I'm just gonna be using a lot of things off the towers to create sort of staples to load up into the refrigerator. And I thought it would be a good time to take you guys along, because I do get that question often. How do you eat the food that you grow? There's some really cool foods, like this incredibly gorgeous Chinese spinach. But if you are new to gardening, you may even be in the stage of learning how do you eat lettuce off a tower. I had someone send me some pictures into my inbox, and it was like, what is this green? And it was lettuce. But lettuce, homegrown in different varieties, looks very different than what you may be used to at the grocery store. Can taste very different. We have to store homegrown food a little bit differently and prep it a little bit differently. So we're going to dive into that in this episode, and I'm just going to walk you through like how we live with towers and eat the food. And here are the things I harvested. I harvested leeks. These were cut over like the end of the summer, early fall, and I let them regrow. And then I have about 4 pounds of greens in this basket. This is just lettuce, but then it's also things like parsley for our tabouli and fennel. I'm going to use fennel in my tabouli instead of peppermint. I've got mustard greens I'm going to use in my dal. I've got tatsoi and bok choys, and tajimusai I'm going to use in my orzo pasta salad. So we're very green heavy right now, and that is the towers. You know, when you're growing indoors, what the majority of the food you should be growing is greens and herbs, because those are the things that do best. Now we still have tomatoes. They're just not ready yet. I've got cucumbers. I have a squash that's blooming right now. These are a baby cauliflower here. I've talked about those in the past that are gonna grow pretty quick, 28 days. This is a standard cauliflower over here. So we can grow more than just greens. I'm growing lots of peppers indoors. They actually do really well indoors. But we want to be, if we want to be eating off our towers, we need to be turning over, starting our seeds every 2 weeks. You guys hear me saying that all the time. Growing them for a long period of time on the grow station, and then pulling the whole plant out and starting over. This is going to give us a lot of nutrition added in to some staples from other places. So I bulk buy at Azure Standard. So I've got buckets of orzo pasta. I've got buckets of lentils. What else are we making? Wheat bulgur is what's in Tabouli. I've got tons and tons of all of those staple things. So all I have to do is prep those and then come out here and harvest all of this. And between this and my staples, we can have some really incredible, really nutrient dense foods to put on the table. And you can't buy this at the grocery store. You can't buy this kind of nutrition at the grocery store. It's not possible. They don't carry the variety of food we can grow. The food is older. It's been sprayed, most likely. Even organic foods are being found to have forever chemicals on them, grown at the grocery store because of all the plastics being used in organic farming. Here, we just have an abundance, and it keeps growing year round. It's January. It's actually snowed 2 days ago, and I have all of this food. I'll show you guys inside the actual abundance. Sometimes it's hard to tell how much is really here, but this is a ton of food. Whew. Oh my gosh, it's so cold. Okay, so here's what I mean about everything's a disaster. These are my oranges. I've got a case of lemons here, another orange, grapefruit. Got all the boxes and the mess. So part of this kitchen renovation is to get our fridge a little bit more functioning. It's just a total nightmare. So I got some food containers, and I found one really cool, and I'll show you guys later, for greens, because I was also having the issue of how do we store a lot of greens in the fridge in a way that's easy to go in there and grab them, and I found a really cool solution. So let's go inside because I am absolutely freezing. Now the cool part about it being cold outside, I keep this bench here to keep our food on, and it's like a second refrigerator this time of year because we're not getting super low at night. I can do that. It's not freezing, and they're close to the house so they get a little bit more heat. Oh, but it is really, really cold. Okay, so the kitchen's gonna be a bit of a disaster. Underneath the table is food. Over there's food, over there's food, over there's stuff. There's stuff everywhere, and it's just how it's gonna be as I start to chip away at this kitchen renovation project. So I'm starting by renovating the fridge, like I said, and I just needed to meal prep because that's how we eat healthy. And I have all of this citrus, and it's not gonna get eaten if it's just like this. So I'll be cutting some of that up, not on camera, but I'm gonna make fruit, just like cut up fruit, oranges and grapefruit, and that way it just makes it more edible. Got a case of mangoes down here, so I'll be cutting some of those up as I organize the fridge and just setting up different spots in the fridge. I will show you guys what it looks like the before and then the after the before. It's pretty bad. I also have my sourdough. Now, I do not have an oven, so I can't make sourdough bread. I have a little Ninja. It's not big enough for bread. So I'm going to turn these into hamburger buns because I want some hamburger buns, and obviously don't eat hamburgers. I eat mushrooms. I eat portobello mushroom burgers, or a lot of times I just make veggie packed hamburger buns. So I like to load them up with a handful of lettuce and onion and a little vegan mayonnaise, and it's so delicious. What other vegetables? Like, I love cucumbers on a veggie sandwich. So we need to get this dealt with. I didn't pull in the lettuce yet. I just don't feel like I can handle that quite yet. But I did break this up into 3 categories. I have my dark leafy greens. These are Chinese mustards. They're going in my dal, and I'm making the dal tonight. I have some dark kales, cabbages. Those are going into this orzo pasta salad, and I'll talk about this in a minute. And then my last thing I'm going to make tonight, hopefully, is my tabouli. And so this is 1/3 cup of olive oil, 1/3 cup of lemon, my wheat bulgur, and I usually do fresh tomatoes, but I didn't have any fresh tomatoes, and I store my tomatoes that I grew all summer by dehydrating them, keep them in a jar. I keep them in my little glass cabinet over here in jars. So I've got several jars of these. And so I am making a dehydrated tomato tabouli. I also didn't have enough parsley, but you can use kale, any kind of green to make your tabouli. So I'm going to use some kale leaves, some fennel instead of peppermint. I often put peppermint in my tabouli, but I had fennel instead. So fennel, parsley, and some kale greens, and we'll make that tabouli. So that's 3 dishes that just spread over the week, so we can nibble on these. Like I can make a salad, I can take some greens out of my new container I'm going to show you guys, and I can add some orzo pasta to it that also is going to have greens in it, but it has a ton of flavor. I can top it with some hummus. I'm going to be making some hummus. I can add some tabouli. That makes an incredible meal. I like all those varieties. That's why I call it the Whole Foods bar, because I like to mix all those flavors and foods. And then the dal I like to eat by itself. It's just so warm and soothing. All right, so what I'm doing is dividing the greens up based on recipe, and I'm going to wash them. And so I put my dal greens over there. So I think I'm just going to do some of the cabbages, a few kales for the orzo, and not have that one super green. So let's wash all of these. So I'm going to add some water and wash all these. The lighting's going to be especially bad today. It's just really dark out. So this orzo pasta. It is orzo pasta with pine nuts, olives, Kalamata olives, a little bit of olive oil, like 2 tablespoons, and this is about 3 cups orzo. When I started, I've eaten some of this actually, and about 1 cup of olives chopped, pine nuts to your tasting, and then I put the juice of 1 lemon. You can do 1 to 2 lemons, just depends how lemony you like it. I have been eating this, I've eaten at least 2 cups of it actually, with radish sprouts over the top because I was just being lazy about going to harvest. And it just is a great tasty meal, but you can add anything to it. And I want to stretch this a little bit, and I want to use some other produce. So I'm going to chop up 2 cucumbers, add them, and then I'm going to add the greens. That just makes it more nutrient dense and makes it go a little bit longer. And for the flavor on this, the dressing, I might need to add a little bit more. I also added 2 tablespoons of the juice of the olives instead of adding salt. So you can do, you know, whatever you want to this. It's also really, really good with feta cheese. I'm just trying to avoid cheese. More people in my family will eat this if I add feta cheese to it. So I will probably make a bowl of it with feta cheese, and then I'll pull my version aside. And I don't feel like it needs a feta because of the olives. They're so meaty. To me, that's enough. But I think everyone in my family would prefer it with feta cheese. So just dicing these cucumbers up. I'm gonna thinly slice our handful of greens. I've got a hefty handful of greens. I'm going to use a really high quality olive oil. Just to drizzle and massage that in. You can do this without oil if you do low fat. I have found my digestion is happier with a little bit of oil, especially when I eat greens. All right. Ah, they're stuck to my hand. I want a few more olives and a little more olive juice. I love these olives in this recipe. They're so meaty and fabulous. I'll just rough chop them. This would kind of fall in that plant-based Mediterranean category. If you're following a Mediterranean diet, I don't really follow a diet if you haven't noticed. I just try to eat off the towers, make meals with things I can grow, and then use whole, clean ingredients that I can bulk buy as the base. All right, let's stir this up. Incredible. All right, guys, so when we started, I had a very white, well, this is a whole wheat pasta, so I had a very wheat colored orzo bowl of orzo pasta. You can't see the pine nuts because they're the same color, with black olives. Now I have a very green, very hearty mixture of all sorts of flavors and nutrition. And we've got crunch from the cucumbers. We've got a sweetness from the pine nuts. We've got that meaty flavor from the olives. The greens are just always incredible. I love greens so much. And then orzo to fill us up, because we do need something to fill our tummies. Let's make our dal next. And I'm going to show you the best cheat I have ever found with dal, because sometimes I just don't want to go through the hassle of making true traditional Indian food, because it is more time consuming, because I'm not good at it and I don't really know how to do it very well. So I found a cheat. I found a workaround. All right, I'm trying to play with my camera settings and get a little more light for you guys, because we live in the Blue Ridge Mountains. It really is blue like that outside. It's very white blue. This is my hack. It is dal masala mixture. It's all the spices, so I don't have to do all of the spices, and I don't have to cook them. Typically I would put this with some oil and saute it with onions and garlic. Actually, I am going to do that. And then I add my lentils and my water and my greens, turn it on, and we're done. I'm also going to add some bell peppers to this. Maybe I won't. Yeah, I'm going to add some bell peppers to this. Then I'm going to add all my greens to this. And then I just cook it in Instapot. It's super simple. But what happened is I have lots of mess. I have my black lentils here. I get these at Azure in bulk. And I cooked these, but I accidentally cooked them too long. I like to cook these just a couple of minutes in the Instapot, so they're still super crispy, or I don't know, what do you call a lentil that's not cooked full? They're not mushy, they're not crunchy, because that would mean they're super raw, but they're a nice texture. They still have all like a meaty texture to them, and you can eat them plain. And I will put bowls of these in the fridge, and so if we're making a burrito bowl, or if I'm gonna make some tabouli and some of my orzo pasta, I can take a big hefty scoop of lentils and mix it in with that, and it's so delicious. But I overcooked the ones that I did the other day, so we're gonna just turn them into dal. For my dal, I like to use a yellow split mung bean. My friend is from India and is an amazing cook, and he married a wife that became an amazing cook of Indian foods, and they taught me this secret. And here they are right here. So these I can't find at Azure, so I will link these below. I actually have to buy these bulk on Amazon, so I just keep a big stock of them in our pantry downstairs and refill my jar. Just did that recently, but these are what we're going to use to make our dal. Okay, and I'm going to shift this up a little bit. So this is not real Indian dal. I love to make real Indian dal, but like I said, I'm not good at it, and I actually like this just as much. But because I'm going to make this a creamier dal with a nice kick, I'm actually going to add some red lentils to this too, and I'm going to add a can of coconut. So definitely not traditional. I'm not going to do the spices and saute them with the onion like I said. I'm not even going to add onion to this. I am just going to take my lentils that I cooked yesterday. They got too mushy, and I'm going to add to this. And I'm going to add a ton of greens and some peppers that I dried over, some peppers that I grew, some hot peppers that I grew over the summer that I have dried. And we're just going to throw it all in the Instapot and call it good. Okay, we're going to read the back here. You definitely don't want to add too much. This is not like one packet. You don't use the whole packet. You use 1 to 2 tablespoons per half a cup soaked mung bean, split mung bean. So I'm going to do 4 tablespoons. Maybe I'm going to do 6 tablespoons. I like a lot of spice and I like hot. And I'm also already 1 cup in here, and I'm going to be adding more. This is how I prep food, guys. There you go. Very exact recipes. Okay. I have some peppers that I dried over the summer. I'm just going to pop the stems, and we're going to break those up. If you don't like really hot, go lighter on this because this is spicy, and maybe cut this part out. That one's not dry. These two are not dry. Isn't that incredible? I love storing peppers this way. I love drying food to preserve it or fermenting it. I'm not a big canner. I'm gonna do some canned tomato sauces and salsas because we do use those. Actually, I may do freezer salsas. But you're not going to see me can a bunch of food, ever. That's why I grow in the towers, because we can grow year round and we don't have to can. All right, I'm going to chop the greens. I'm going to cover this with water by about 1/2 inch. Yeah, and I'm going to add a can of coconut milk to fill in the rest. This is going to turn into mush dal. So I'm not worried about chopping these precise. I just want to get them smaller. This right here is a 3-quart Instapot. I absolutely love it. It keeps food waste down because I found when I had a bigger one, I was making too much of things. This is the right size for our family, and I just turn my food over fast, like I always say on the towers. Making things, we're eating it in a couple of days, and then we're making something different, and then we may go back to the dal. I think next I'll make black-eyed peas after we finish this with greens, because I have a bunch of cabbage to harvest, and so I'm always just rotating our foods out like that. So this is a great size. So we're done with that. Need to add water and coconut milk. And where I just disappeared to is underneath this cabinet. I store food. So get creative when you have a small kitchen. And sometimes our house looks big on video because of the lens I use, but it's pretty small. And I mean, we've got a great space in our kitchen. we eat a lot of whole foods. We have a lot of this stuff around. So you just got to get creative. I'm going to find a can opener. Coconut milk is a clean crop, so you don't have to buy it organic. Just a little FYI food saver. Some things I always buy organic. And then some things that I know are okay. Like, well, it's changing so fast, but so I don't even want to give you like some of the things because it could change. But right now, non-organic coconut milk. This one's non-GMO. Not even sure coconuts are a genetically modified crop at this point. I don't think they are. So that's just sales gimmick trick there. But overall, as of making this video and my last research, non-organic is okay. And then these are non-BPA free cans. That does matter. So for the water, I'm just going to fill this up and that should do it. I'm gonna add a little bit more water. Okay. So this is an easy cleanup meal, which I love. Protein packed, which I could care less about protein. I think that's such a scam. And what I mean by that is, yeah, that's a different topic. But if you are curious, a friend just asked me about protein. Protein is the only macro ingredient that actually turns into a toxin if we eat too much of it. So your body will store carbs in your muscles, and then anything excess will turn into fat through a very long process that actually burns calories for it to do that. Fat, you overeat it, it goes right to fat. That's why they say they can like take a sample off your body of fat and it'll still be in the form of the fat you ate. Like if you ate bacon, totally gross. And protein doesn't. Protein that you don't use goes through a very long, complicated process, and the end result is a toxin to your body. I'm not a huge eat lots of protein person. I don't want to go to the basement, so I'm going to just add what's in this package, which looks to be about 4 tablespoons. I'm probably going to have to go to the basement. That was definitely only about 3. All right, so I'm going to go grab another. I'll link these below. I also buy these in bulk on Amazon. According to my friends who are from there, this is a clean brand, and a lot of Indian spices are very clean, even if you buy packaged things like this, because their culture doesn't do what we do with food here. So that's amazing. So I'm going to go add more of that. I'm going to stick this lid on, and we're going to cook this for 15 minutes, and I'll show you guys what it looks like when it's done. We're gonna make the tabouli. I'll make the buns without you guys because I am not the sourdough expert. Farmhouse on Boone, she's an amazing resource for sourdough if you want to dive into that. But I am going to show you my sprouts, and I have a sprouting course coming out. You can look in the description below. It may be out by the time of this video, but coming out soon. Just very low cost, but I wanted to create a roadmap on sprouting. I've been sprouting for many, many years. I actually used to sell a sprout kit. We used to have it handmade by somebody. We sold them on Amazon for years. And the problem is sprouts are very easy, but they can also be very complicated. And I do not like jar sprouting. And the kit that I was selling was a jar sprouting kit. And I used the one with the lids that taper in different sizes, so you could change the lid and clean your sprouts properly. But the main problem with jar sprouting is I think they make murky. sprouts, and they taste gross to me. They taste like dirty water no matter how much I would try and clean them. So I have found other methods for sprouting. This is 2 of them here, but there's more than this. And then each variety of food requires a different technique as well. So I go through that in the course. Like if we want to do, these are my mung bean sprouts. And if you want mung bean sprouts that are like stir fry, those white crispy ones, there are some things you need to do to get them that way. And if you want them to have green tops, there's a different method for that. So these are my sprouts. Be on the lookout for that course. It'll come with an ebook, and it'll be just a straightforward, very short lessons. You can go through it quickly, but then have it to reference and really master sprouts pretty quickly. These are an incredible superfood. It's a great way to grow your own food without having to have expensive equipment, and they make meals so tasty. Starving. Are you guys busy right now?
Oh yeah. Always busy.
Oh my gosh, it's so good. This one, oh my gosh, it's so good. The tomatoes give it like a bacony flavor. Not real bacon, but you know, whatever that flavor is. And then I added some salt. So all this is 1/3 cup olive oil, 1/3 cup lemon juice, drizzle of salt, the Bulgar sun-dried tomatoes. You can use fresh tomatoes. That's typically what I do. And then with the greens, I like to typically add green onions, which I totally forgot, and then a peppermint. And I didn't have peppermint, so I took fennel leaves off the tower, and those filled that sort of minty flavor part to this. So really, really good. All right, so I'm doing the greens now. It's the next day, and I'm just gonna soak these in cold water with a little bit of organic lemon juice, just to brighten the flavor a little bit and keep them crisp and fresh, because there are a lot of greens here, and just want to make sure they stay fresh until we can eat them. So I just cut them with scissors. You can compost your rock wool. Oftentimes I give it to my chickens. They use it as grit, and they get to eat all of, you know, the remnants of what might be left. Off any bad leaves that I see. This one was kind of jammed up on the tower, so it didn't grow perfectly. Didn't have enough room on the tower. I don't like to crowd lettuce, but then I also grow in the baby greens extension kit a lot, and that crowds lettuce, so it is what it is. And I do that because you just get more greens. So a head of lettuce grown by itself on a standard grow port is going to turn out bigger and fuller, but it takes a long time. And so I grow them on the baby greens extension kit as well as alone. This is a mustard. So gorgeous. I grow them both alone to get the full heads of lettuce, but then I grow a lot on the extension kits because you get all of these greens really quickly. The mustards are going to give us some color and texture to these greens. This is a mix with some kales and mustards. Oh my gosh, there's so much goodness in this bowl. So we're going to let this soak for about 10 to 15 minutes. This water is super cold to the touch, and I've got the lemon juice in there. And we're just letting these rehydrate. I'm kind of shuffling them to loosen them, make sure they're not sticking together. And that all the surfaces are getting nice and hydrated. And then we're going to take all of this and feed it to the chickens. You can worm compost this as well, because worms need grit to make soil. All right, and here is what our doll's looking like. And that's what I'm going for. Basically, it looks like mush. Again, these aren't recipes. This is just how I prep food. This tastes amazing. It has a perfect heat to it. It actually will thicken up a little bit. I've got it on slow cook because it had a little bit too much water. So I've got the lid off and I'm letting it dry up. But lentils are a superfood. The only fat in this is from our coconut milk. We've got our greens from the garden. There's lots of them. You can see it's very green heavy. Every bite. Maybe you can see that. Every bite. My camera focus is not good. Has some greens in it. Actually, a lot of greens in it, which is what I was going for. So super happy about that. You can find dal recipes all over the internet if you want a more specific recipe. But this is how I've learned to just sort of prep food and keep it simple. And it's just like a go-to. I know I can throw those things in there, throw the seasoning. I've made this with cauliflower. You can do all sorts of veggies that are really good too. So that one's done. And here I'm going to finish up our greens. So all I do for the greens is I put them into a salad spinner, spin out as much water as possible. Usually takes about 3 times to get most of the water out. And then I am going to lay a towel out and I'm going to spread these out over the towel, trying to spread them out as much as possible. And then they are just going to sit on the towel and air dry for a bit. You want to make sure your greens are nice and dry before you put them into the fridge so that they don't break down, they don't get soggy. When you're dealing with baby greens, sometimes you'll buy those plastic tubs and like the red lettuce will go bad first and it kind of mucks up the whole bin. We avoid that by allowing our greens to get nice and dry before we put them in the fridge. And it's especially important to do this right if you want to keep greens in the fridge a little bit longer, or if you're doing a large harvest like I did in this video, just because we want them to last as long as possible. Now, best practice is to harvest and eat them as quickly as possible, but we all know that sometimes food prep is important to make sure we're keeping healthy food on the table. Okay, I'm gonna let you look inside the disaster fridge. So part of this kitchen makeover, I keep my baskets and dehydrator up there, so I just need to get that cleaned up and tidy again. It's gotten out of control, but the inside the fridge has gotten like double out of control. I have my bread rising here, and you'll get to see all our compromises too. All right. Here is the fridge. It's a total disaster and it's not working. A lot of this stuff, like there's okra in the back. I've got 5 jars of jalapeno peppers I can consolidate. Just out of control. So everything needs to have a place, and I need all these extra jars of things to go. We try to make our own homemade salad dressing, or I do. But I have a child who likes this one and will eat salads if I have that. This is a compromise because they'll eat a ton of stir fry off the towers if there's yum yum sauce. So I'll show you guys the after. But I need spaces for our bulk foods. Like this is a bag of cooked potatoes. that I can use. I'm going to use it for some soups. I'm going to do smashed potatoes, all sorts of recipes for the week. So I need to have places for this stuff to sit that doesn't look like that. Hey guys, so we're on day 3. And we've eaten a lot of food that I've prepped, and I still want to add a few things. So we're going to make some hummus, and I have cleaned the fridge and organized it. So I'll give you guys a tour of that. And I took some leftovers in the fridge that just needed a place to go, needed a home, and turned them into sauerkraut. So this is purple cabbage and carrots, and I added the salt, massaged it for a minute, and I'm just letting it sit for a while until all the water comes out, and then I'll stuff this in a jar. And so that's where we're at with our food prep. I also took a break, and I'll B-roll in. I went to the antique thrift shop to look for the furniture to replace the kitchen cabinets. I found some pieces I absolutely love, but I actually think they're all too big. So I'll have to do that all over again. But let's take a tour of the fridge. Let me show you what it looks like now. And then I'm going to show you how I make hummus. Okay, here is the inside of the fridge. I have some jars over there. I still have 5 jars of jalapenos, but I forgot those were fermented. And I just recycled these jars. So they need to stay in the fridge because that was a fermented jalapeno that I did. So I just put them towards the front because they go amazing on my dal that we made together. And I'll just remember now. So we've got our dal. We've eaten a lot of it, but there's 2 jars left. I've got tabouli, which is why I want to make the hummus, because we eat it more if there's hummus. That was some spaghetti squash that I made with fresh tomatoes that I roasted. The orzo pasta, we still have some of that, and I actually added red onions to it, but that will be gone in the next day or 2. What else is in here? So up here I've got my lettuce bin, and that makes it nice and easy. And you can see that thing, maybe you can see, it's really gigantic. So we've got a lot of greens we can pull from. I can pull to juice, which I'm going to do today because there's some fruit I need to eat, and it just saves me from having to go out to the towers, which I like to do fresh food right from the towers most of the time, but it also sometimes hinders me because I have to film when I harvest. And so because I make content, I film when I harvest, and sometimes I don't want to go out there and harvest anything because I want to make sure I film it before I harvest it, and then I don't have a green juice. So I'm really happy about this new concept where I can harvest a bunch of greens, film it, and then have them in here ready to go. We lose a little bit of nutrients doing that, but this is still super fresh food, so I'm not too worried about it. It's more about making sure we actually eat the food consistently. So up here, I have my sprouts, some of my mung beans. I have a yogurt, regular yogurt for one of the children, and I have my vegan yogurt. These drawers here, I have one person in the family that is obsessed with baby carrots. I think they're disgusting and taste like bleach, but that's what this drawer is. These are some cucumbers. This is a Amish butter and cheese drawer for the children. More vegetables. And then down here is tofu, vegan butter, cream cheese. Some chicken for the dog. So here, and like I mentioned, I'm creating some content. It will be on 50 different things that I sprout. And sprouts are a superfood, and each one has its own superfood components. But there's some really cool things, like garbanzo beans are 3 times healthier than a traditional garbanzo if you sprout them. So we're changing the enzymes in them. We can get complete proteins, complete amino acids, so proteins, by sprouting. And so there's just so much benefit to it. It's also super inexpensive and gives us fresh food right on the counter. I love growing in the towers, but this is easy food. It's easy to stock up on the seeds. It's food security. I think if there was ever a crisis, I see a lot of people buy like those emergency bins of food This is what you need if there's ever some sort of crisis, because this will actually keep you healthy. Here are my garbanzo beans. These are broccoli sprouts. Broccoli sprouts are more difficult and take a longer time, but broccoli sprouts are really important for women's health and breast tissue health. If you have estrogen buildup, this is what you want to have in your diet. Mung beans, got a lot of mung beans. Radish, these are to show the difference in the different trays. You cannot, oh, I'm dripping. You cannot grow everything, sprout everything in these trays. And you don't want to sprout everything in these trays. There's certain systems that make it better depending on what you're sprouting, on which tray system you use. So there's the mung beans again. And they're incredible. So good. So tasty. So much flavor. Okay guys, typically about 95% of the time I like to cook my own beans, and I actually make this same hummus out of other beans. I actually love lima bean hummus, but kind of over cooking beans right now, so I grabbed a can of organic garbanzo beans. I do keep a few canned things in the pantry for emergencies and for when I'm feeling lazy, so I'm just going to use a can. It's definitely more cost effective to make your own beans, obviously. So the trick to this I have found is to pre-blend your lemon. Hi Barnaby! Lemon and garbanzo beans. The dog just got back from the neighbors. Neighbors, our dog groomer. I have a doodle. It's a great thing. Okay, so I've opened my can. We need 1/4 cup lemon juice. Okay, so I'm going to juice into this, maybe. Perfect. Okay, here's the secret. We're only gonna do half our ingredients in the Vitamix first. And I need 1/4 teaspoon of tahini. This one's by Trader Joe's. I usually buy a case at a time from Azure Standard. It's just better, and then I have it if we need it. So 1/4. We're gonna get that ready. Okay, I'm gonna put half of this in. We want 2 tablespoons of olive oil. I use a really good one from Azure. This is not one you cook with or anything. So I'm doing 1 tablespoon now, and we're gonna blend all this. And I'm gonna go ahead and put my garlic in too. Recipe is 1 garlic clove. I love garlic, so I will probably do a lot more, but let's see. I also get my garlic from Azure when I'm not growing it. I haven't grown it in a couple of years because I don't have an established bed, but that's the goal this year, is to get my Vigo raised beds where I want them permanently, and moving forward, grow my own garlic. A lot of garlic comes from China and is soaked in chemicals, so be really careful with garlic. All right, let's blend this. Oh, okay, so the last ingredient, well, not the last ingredient, but another ingredient is we want the liquid from our chickpeas. Not a ton of it, but I'm going to add just a little bit. And let's blend this up. Okay. Nice and creamy. Now we're going to add half our beans. Super creamy. It's a little watery right now, so I want to make sure I don't get any more of the liquid from the beans. So I'm going to rinse these really quickly. Okay, I rinsed my beans, put those in. We're gonna put the rest of our tahini. The point of doing it a little at a time is to make it creamy and moist. All right. I'm not gonna add the oil because it's a little bit thin, so let's just see. Now it's incredible, super thick. Oh, that is really good. Oh my gosh, the lemon in that is incredible. Okay, so I'm just gonna leave the oil out. We don't need extra oil in our lives if we don't need it. I'm going to add maybe like a half a teaspoon. I cannot read. This is a half a teaspoon of my cumin. I'm going to add a half a teaspoon salt. I taste no garlic, so I'm going to add garlic. All right, let's blend that. Okay. This is so rich and creamy. Oh my gosh. It's got a little garlic kick down too, a little heat to it. That is so good. I'm gonna drizzle a little bit of olive oil just on the top when I put it into a food container. All right, we're gonna plate these up. This is incredible. Highly recommend this recipe. It's just the best, most simplest found for hummus. Now you can add pine nuts to this. You can do the crushed garlic on top. You can do roasted red peppers. I make it with lima beans. I actually cook lima beans in the Instapot with onion and then make that the base. So many different possibilities, but the tahini ratio to the lemon juice is the key. Okay, and here's what we do it for. So delicious. I've got my lettuce greens from the tower. I went and got some fresh cilantro to sprinkle on there. We have our tabouli. Now I've been eating off the tabouli every day, but this is how I like to bring it all together when I make all these little components. You just mix them up. We've got our hummus, which is our dressing for our tabouli and our lettuce. I found some green beans on the tower and I wanted to eat those raw with my hummus. I've got our orzo pasta here. I added red onions to it yesterday. I've been eating off of that for a couple of days, and yesterday just felt like it needed some, I was just craving red onion, one of my favorite foods. So I added that and our mung bean sprouts, and there it is.